Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gamesline's brand new podcast where we're talking about video games. I'm John, and I didn't play any video games this week. Yeah, well, I kind of did, but it didn't, I didn't, it wasn't really anything to talk about. I just played through Separate Ways a second time. Yay! We have Maverick here. Maverick is here. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
What gaming did you get up to, Maverick?
Similarly, all I've done is more Lies of Feet, but actually, by the time last time I had talked about it, I finished the game.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you just want to jump right into it, or if there's any other crazy shit you want to discuss. Because I don't know, maybe I didn't mean to just like skip directly into gaming, but what's going on? What's going on?
Man, I don't know. October's going to be a funny month. That's the best way I'll say it. It's going to be a funny month.
We'll figure it out,
Yep, as always. But no, it's been like occasionally you get into those lulls and back and forth of like, what am I gaming on? What am I not gaming on? I'm glad that within the last week I was able to just have a lot of like dedicated focus on a game. It feels like it's been a while that I've like allowed myself that kind of engagement. Not like, oh man, I'm being rushed to like think something about it, but it really was just like, I want to get to the end of this because I want to see what I get. And I mean, I can get into it. I'll just go ahead and get right into it. I honestly think that Lies of P is one of my favorite, like easily one of my favorite games of this year. But also like this probably does a lot more for me than what Bloodborne does for a lot of other people.
Wow.
And like I don't mean that as a knock on what Bloodborne is, because believe me, I know plenty of folks where like Bloodborne is their iterative game experience, and I'm not gonna deny that. Like the existence of this does not mean to be a replacement for the other, but it feels like finally someone looked at like the emergence of the action platformer genre, trying to give it words that exist outside of like Soulsborne, Souls-like, the way that we so often ascribe to genre, just like, oh no, it plays like something else. That in this case FromSoft is so like easily capitalized on for the last like decade, I want to say.
Sure, it sure feels like it.
I mean, yeah, like when did Demon Souls was out like mid 2000s. By the time Dark Souls came out, we were already looking at like
that was like 2011, I think.
Yeah, so yeah, just over 10 years. And we've seen plenty of games trying to take stakes similar to it. Other games do something different, but still in the vein of it. I definitely understand the people who will go to Neo and say, oh no, this isn't that. I definitely feel it in the times that I've tried out Neo. I at least have cultivated that like play sense language where it's like I see the strings, but it's like, it's like the difference between a lion and a leopard. Technically, they're all in that same like categorical structure, but it just is the fact that they are two different species, and you gotta like acknowledge that difference.
Absolutely.
Lies of P honestly feels similar in that category, where this is just an entirely new species of the action adventure platformer. Again, trying to figure out how I could at least say this that isn't just Souls-like. I could be cheeky and be like, it's actually a Metroidvania. It's not. It genuinely is not. But what it is, above all else, is a game that is not afraid to just be wholehearted in what it's doing. And that has been a lot of fun. Like, John, I'd say, if I'm remembering correctly, you were not the most Soulsborns aren't really like your jam. They aren't like the immediate thing. No, I will not think that this is one that is like going to change that for you. I definitely wouldn't say that. But I think what it does do that might have been missing before is at least give me the chance to be like, hey, here's some guys. Not to say Dark Souls and Bloodborne do not have guys, but the biggest thing about these games is that you are often a vehicle for the machinations of whatever else is going on in this world that you populate. You know, you get big and strong, you get all these levels, but it's like, ultimately you're still chained to whatever the system is that is just keeping the oftentimes dying vestiges of a like world together. Like, you show up to get big and strong as everything is just collectively waiting for a timely demise. And Lies of P, you know, starts up similarly, but the big thing is that it is kind of just saying, hey, you know, you're being exposed to a lot of different things, but you have the ability, despite, you know, your existence as a puppet, your existence as this, you know, mechanical being, you have the ability to lie. A lot of its messaging comes on this idea of, you know, what it is to be human, what it is to be an individual. And if we pinpoint all of these particular features, you know, it then comes to the deduction that could be made is, oh, something that is similar here could then be considered human. Something that is able to do this function is able to do similar ideas. And so a lot of the storytelling here coinciding with being able to mess around with the original narrative of Pinocchio, which I actually got a chance to read, or at least read a bit of. That shit's wild.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those stories where you go back to it and you're just like, what were they cooking?
I mean,
what's going on?
It's a whole chapter book, and it's just like, what if I made a child so much of a bastard, but all he could do for the latter is like, man, I've just been a fuck up. How could I go back and make sure to be less of a fuck up? If only I was able to show how much less of a fuck up I was, then maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to live and not XY. Like, insert the kind of torture that is like befalling the dear wooden Italian kid, and you'll figure that out. There's a good bit in the beginning, though, where it's like, there's just a scene of Geppetto beating up his friend, and they just like fuck each other up, but then they're like, all right, see you tomorrow. Just a very Dewdrop attitude that I didn't expect out of this book.
That's great.
But all that to say is, like, even the book, you know, can be a thing where it's like, things are happening upon this character, and it's kind of just like, well, here I am, taking the brunt of it. Lies of P actually kind of takes that as like, well, what if you were the, you know, generator of action? What if you were much more of a catalyst based on this feature? Lying not so much being like a immediately immoral thing to do, but rather a lot of the scenarios that you get force you to lie or to tell the truth as is necessary. And that ties into much more of its setup. And then I don't know if the gameplay necessarily would fit into that one-to-one. I'm not going to try and make that comparison, but it's like, if lying can at least be seen as a resource and as a tool, then Lies of P in general is very much more about, you know, what are the tools that you have at hand and how can you craft a solution out of those tools? Because the builds that you get, all the the big like split of strength, dexterity, and other or magic, in this case, motivity. I got them. I know them. But like motivity, technique, and advance, those are the equivalents that you have to deal with. And there's no like preset way to go about them. And if anything, it's interesting to see that Lies of P is a game where dexterity actually becomes pretty worthwhile to go into, and is like the way that you can really find yourself getting through a lot of these bosses. It never limits you for choosing to be a technique-oriented thing, where some other games I might be like, oh, I get a lot more stamina for attacks, but it never really feels like I'm doing as much damage. This is the game that is like, oh no, if you want to be a little freak about that, go for it. Like, this is your chance to do it. And honestly, the best weapon for it is such a fun little changer as well, where it's like you get stance changes with it, or you get just like a little bit more. It teeters into a little bit of like style, into a little bit of like, oh man, am I still playing it? Are we getting a little actiony, a little character actiony? Not all the way, but it flirts with that idea. It flirts with a lot of other gameplay genre that is really interesting to see implemented. And that's been a lot of fun too, where it's just like, you find the way that works and you kind of just stick to it. But I'm at least motivated enough to check out a potential like New Game Plus and really just go at it again with the stuff I didn't use, and really just go ahead and figure out, what would it be like to just swing around a big fuck off wrench? What would it be like to just reduce that speed ability that I had, but at the same time, like, make up for it with just big, meaty hits? So that's been that was a fun way to like experiment. And overall, like, I was just surprised at the way that I would hit a wall, give it some time, but then like by the next day I would have like figured it out. It was like an immediate like allocation. It was an immediate just like, acquisition of skill, where I remember there's like, I think even just like on Friday, I was at like the last stretch of the game. I think I was talking to you for a bit as I was trying to like crack out this last boss, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't have the energy for it right now. Hang out for a bit. But then, like, before I was even considering going to bed, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, nah, I gotta try this. I gotta try it one more time. And I figured it out. And I beat the game.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's been so rare. Like, I still haven't technically beat Bloodborne. I haven't beat Sekiro. Elden Ring, I'm still eventually going to get to, but I've just like given up on all these other ones. Not because they like disinterest me. No, if anything, like, far from it. I think they are still things worth the dedication and love that they have, despite all the get good mentality, which as always can like go away. But I don't know, like, it's interesting to see one of these where it's like, oh no, I am committed to seeing this through to the end. And I think a lot of that too comes down to the characterization. It is much more willing to give you the characters to be attached to and be interested in. Not that it doesn't lack that whole like lore, what's all the lore. Plenty of that is still there for folks that want to like get deep into it. But it also is able to like sit down and just say, hey, we still have a story to tell in the now. Let's go ahead and make sure you get through the beginning and end of it. And that helps to keep the momentum. Which, again, not to say that, other FromSoft games don't have it, but it definitely feels like, in this case, the story helped to set everything else up. And I think that's a good way to frame one of these if you're trying to do something different, but also, maybe not everything is like coming out as cleanly as it ought to be as you're figuring out the mechanics for this world that you're building. I also think Gemini is just a really fun character because it's like, you never have anybody alongside you, like, reacting with the events that are going on. And I don't mean like, you gotta always have somebody that's like, well, that just happened. I can't believe that we, saw the big demon. Oh boy. But it's like,
it's just like that time we got swallowed up by a whale, eh, Pinocchio?
Exactly. It's corny and it's cheesy sometimes, but at the same time, it's a level of levity that can feel so rare, even though these are, again, looking at Dark Souls specifically, like those are games about being able to connect with other people uh, through online, through the messages you leave. Like those are all still iterative, and the multiplayer aspect, or at least the communal aspect of everyone being together there, makes sense and can be a diegetic way to experience that. Lies of P is very explicitly single player, and to that end, makes up for that by having other equivalencies for, how you interact, how you encounter the story, how you do things. Like, it's good that I can sit there and be like, oh yeah, there's bosses I know I haven't hit, or there's fights that I chose to not even trigger. And, being able to sit there and let that world exist in that way. Yeah, just I'll probably have more thoughts on it that I could put to paper, but it really was just a good feeling to have this game pop up and, immediately get the urge that, like, oh, I need to beat it now, and I need to play through it right now.
Yeah, it's good that you got your hands on that one and really enjoyed it. Super good. Yeah. I'm waiting for my shipment of the new game that I bought, because I did order Fate Samurai Remnant, and I'm waiting for it. I'm excited to check it out.
I was seeing some people post about that. I
know Rose has it, but I want to actually have my own thoughts on it, because I like Fate, but I also don't like Fate as much as a lot of other people do. So I want to give it a shot. I want to see how it goes,
As someone that has not encountered anything regarding Fate, is this one for me?
Again, I have not put my hands on it yet, but from some of the talk that I've seen around, it does seem like a good entry point, actually.
All right.
So, yeah. I don't know if it'd be a good entry point, but I did read some of the hang on. I was reading a Fate manga recently that I really liked. Let me make sure that I got the name right. One moment. Scrolling through. Fate Type Redline.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing about that one.
Yeah, Type Redline's pretty cool. I would honestly recommend that for entry level stuff too. It's just cool. Yeah, like I said, I haven't fucking been playing anything. I haven't. I mean, yeah.
No, that's fair, man.
I ran through Separate Ways again, and I did it way faster, and I liked it a lot still, and I'm probably gonna run through it again. But yeah, I'm just waiting for Fate. I would be playing more Xenosaga, but I actually have to buy I might have to buy another PS2 controller. I don't know if I have one right now. Because I was using my roommate's PS2, but then they moved out. So now I have my PS2, but I don't think I have a controller. So that'll be something I gotta buy soon, potentially. And I did find out about something online because I was looking at PS2 controllers. I saw one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Apparently, for Final Fantasy X-2, they Square Enix made a PS2 controller that is just a replica of Yuna's guns.
Huh.
And it has the D-pad on the left gun, and then one stick on the right gun. And then on the cord, it has a switch to switch it between the left and right trigger. Or not trigger, stick. So if you have to adjust the camera or whatever, you'd have to reach down to the cord, flip the switch, and then move the camera, and then flip the switch back to move again. Crazy.
Novelty controllers are something else.
I want it very badly is the thing. That's my problem. I do want it. I should have bought the Resident Evil 4 controller when I quote-unquote had the chance to, which was when it was $100 instead of now when it's $800.
Yeah.
Oh well. someday. There was some news this week, though, and scrolling down through this, most of it's bad.
Most of it kind of sucks.
Yeah, this week just kind of sucked for games. For
this week kind of sucked for news.
It was
not all of it. Not all of it.
Not all of it. Not all of it. Some of it is perhaps giving us an inkling of hope, but let's just jump into the bad stuff here. So the big news from this past week is that there was a large amount of layoffs and some other expected layoffs in the future. The ones that did happen were at Epic Games, where they laid off, let me make sure I'm getting the correct number here, 16% of their workforce, which is almost 900 people. They sent out a memo to workers on Thursday and fired a shit ton of people. Most of it seems to be focused on their peripheral aspects of Epic. Like, for example, seems like they fired a lot of people who were not working on their Battle Royale stuff, pretty much. Like, a lot of people thought that Mediatronic got shut down, which is the team that made Fall Guys. But it pretty much just seems like they fired everyone who wasn't working on Fall Guys. Because Mediatronic did make other stuff, but Fall Guys was their big breakout hit, and now it seems like Epic is just like, oh, we don't need you making Murder by Numbers 2. We need everyone to be making Fall Guys, and that's it. And they also sold off their stake in something called Super Awesome, which I don't know what that is. I looked it up, and I still don't really know what it is. I'm just going to be honest with you. But they also spun off Bandcamp, which they had just purchased like a year ago, and now that's owned by some other like conglomerate bullshit thing that has their fingers in a bunch of AI generating pies. So
yeah, like honestly, a lot of these parts are like not beneficial, but really the most damaging part of it is the fact that Bandcamp probably has a much more limited number of days on it left, or at least its current iteration, which, technically not games, but in the way that like media becomes this all-encompassing understanding of the various arts, and to not have the boring conversation around it, yeah, video games are an art, like work of art. It is a media for the art form to exist, but all that to say that, when all this just becomes stuff that you can purchase, like here we have the risk of like losing what has become a very necessary reservoir for indie, very, very specifically like indie musicians, where, where else is going to pop up? Sure, you could have stuff backed up on your SoundCloud, you can have stuff backed up on YouTube, but like Bandcamp was the way for a lot of people to, yes, sell at a prorated amount, but the cut that you would see from Bandcamp was probably the biggest, like, or the smallest percentage of cuts you could find. And I don't know, like in the conversation of like what matters more, actual downloads, actual streams, the direct purchase, all of it becomes like an important conversation piece there. But the biggest factor is that like we might be seeing an end to one of the means for musicians to really have a say on like how their art gets distributed.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they're promising that something won't happen, but it always does.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm hoping that things improve quickly for that, because Bandcamp is a really good place for music. Now what? Where are people gonna go? The store?
Again, it's like you can put stuff up on YouTube, and you can always like, like hustle it out, but
Yeah.
to at least have a place for it to live and for people to discover it naturally, that is the important part. Because now it is sort of like, put all my stuff up on YouTube, but then make sure that my links are all correct. If I've got my Patreon up, then I'll probably like have stuff over there. Like it is a hurdle that a lot of places are having to like figure out now, because like, where does your music live? Where does your art form live?
Nowhere these days. Just all over the place.
And that's the big thing. Bandcamp being one of those spots where it is kind of just like, yeah, no, you can just throw stuff up here. Like bigger names and bigger labels still making use of Bandcamp as a way to, still have a storefront to an extent, even just in the digital scale, helps out. Because otherwise, now everything's got to be like a Spotify store, which, you see the percentage cuts.
Nope. Yeah, it's jack diddly. It's real bad. Yeah. It's a bummer for everyone involved, and, hopefully folks land on their feet, and hopefully this Bandcamp stuff is, not as bad as we all think it'll be. And, we'll see how things shake out. The other big layoff thing going on is Sega has canceled the Hyenas game that had a beta not too long ago, but pretty much everyone was like, yeah, no, this kind of sucks. And I mean, it's less like, oh man, oh no, they're not going to release Hyenas, but Creative Assembly is most likely going to see some layoffs now due to that. Which again, like, it's one of those things where nobody was asking for this, but people enjoyed what Creative Assembly was doing before. Like, if I remember correctly, this like cut into them supporting the newer Warhammer games that they were making.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
like, yeah, like all the Warhammer fans are just like, dude, why did you have these people make some half-assed looter shooter when they could be making, Warhammer, some good stuff that, is proven to be somewhat successful. And, there's a difference between, oh, hey, this team wanted to do something different, and, Sega seemingly shoved them into it. And they had been working on it for a long time, like, way after this sort of game was popular. Like, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, they hopped on it after it became popular, after a bunch of games had already released. So it's a stacked market, and it's also super late. It's just a bad business decision, and the workers are gonna pay for it in the long run.
Yeah, it just really unfortunate, because I didn't even know Hyenas was a thing until I found out that it got canceled.
You can't blame you. Because
but again, it's like one of those things where it's like, well, unfortunately this thing didn't work out, so now who is going to take the brunt of it? And it's like, no one has to, and instead you can just pull those resources again to make stuff that, again, if this being a acquired studio, let them do stuff that they're at least more inclined to do. But that unfortunately is not the case.
Just not good business management, I would say. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I guess in somewhat related news, perhaps related in that this sort of thing would help stave off such events. As we know, the writer strike has ended. And the actors strike is still ongoing, but the negotiations are close to occurring, or have they occurred?
So, with the current state of everything, WGA contract has been negotiated, deal has been struck, strike is over, and so as soon as writers are able to and wanting to, they can go to work. However, a lot of the success from that comes from SAG-AFTRA being able to strike as well, and so a lot of writers are calling in, or rather the current effort now, because of the fact that like the very thorny way in which U.S. labor laws have really cudgeled some of these efforts. The fact that these kinds of strikes were even allowed to happen is due to the timing of contracts, so much less sympathy striking. That, in fact, is actually like illegal. So, because of that, WGA, their deal is struck. Everything is set to go. I believe, if I remember correctly, because I had seen a video from like one of the WGA leaders, Adam Conover, talking a bit more directly about it. Like, if someone wanted to, sit down with a director, sit down with an executive, and be like, "Hey, I got this idea. Let's start figuring it out." They could go ahead and take care of that. However, if that is in fact a situation where, we want to go meet in the studio, well, SAG-AFTRA is still striking, I actually can't do that. I'm not going to cross the picket line. That is fine. That is good to go. And also, a lot of places, like, the writing has not started back. It's not like an immediate return to form. Maybe like, people that work on like talk shows, people that work on reality sets, like, again, it's a very finicky line where for a lot of folks, they'll probably just say, "Oh, whoops, picket line's still here, so I am not going to cross, and we're going to wait to see what that deal looks like."
Right.
This week, SAG-AFTRA is supposed to have negotiations. They should be starting on October 2nd, so should be starting this coming Monday. Or I guess this past Monday, as of the time that we published the episode. But, we'll probably hear more about that. But the big key there is that prior to the bargaining, SAG-AFTRA did authorize a strike from like a games, for a specific like section of the video game members. So 98.32% of SAG-AFTRA members voted in favor of strike authorization for the interactive media agreement, where it specifically is covering like members' work on video games. And so it is like a big amount of it. And then they go in to talk about very specific video game companies that would be affected by this. And again, not that this is calling for a strike, but, if negotiations don't go as planned, the strike continues, then that means people that specifically do game work would also be able to strike. And that would then affect companies including Activision, Blind Light, Disney Character Voices, EA Productions, Foremost Interactive, which I believe is a big one. Is one of those studios that a lot of people get put through. Insomniac, Epic, Take-Two, VoiceWorks Productions, and WB Games. And so a lot of the current voice work that would be affected there. And, again, like, we'll probably have to see what that looks like when it comes to what the kind of coverage we could do. But it's a conversation to be had as soon as we understand better what comes up. Like,
yeah,
the conversation about, interpolation of struck work is always finicky. Not to say that it's like, oh man, we don't want to like be in the wrong, but it's more like with the way that like media as a whole evolves, that then can affect the ways in which people actually need to consider what is being taken care of. Like, again, the whole struck work regarding like recap podcasts specifically came out because it's like we didn't have those in like 2008 or in as big of a propinquity, or even like as helmed by people that have worked on the shows that they're recapping. So alterations, updates that come up as needed, but hopefully, between this and the recent UAW worker strike with all the auto workers, here's hoping we can see some deals come up and actually like give more formative change for this industry in general.
Let's all keep working. That's what we got to do. All working
And
towards better stuff. Let's see. In gaming, two gaming giants here. One who has maybe had a bit of a mixed opinion lately, and one who everyone is kind of like, oh god, thank god he's going. Pretty funny here. So Hideki Kamiya has announced that he is leaving Platinum Games, and Jim Ryan, the current CEO of PlayStation, Sony Interactive Entertainment, is also is stepping down himself. We don't fully know what's going on with Kamiya. He did say that he is going to continue to create in the quote Hideki Kamiya way. So he's probably going somewhere else, or maybe he's setting his own thing up, or we'll see how that goes. But Jim Ryan, I think he's just retiring. He's old. He's been at PlayStation for 30 years. Or yeah, Sony and PlayStation. Kamiya these past few years has been, there was the whole bit with Bayonetta 3, and it also just kind of seems like he hasn't been able to spread his own wings lately, because, they bumped him up to, more of a leadership role instead of a development role at Platinum. And, I mean, he was trying to make, Scalebound got canceled on him, and he was trying to make that, kaiju game, and who knows what was going on with that. Just real messy scenario, it seems, and Platinum has just not been anywhere near as good as they have been over the past couple years. So this definitely just, it was a shock, but when you sit there and think about it for a little bit, you're just like, yeah, no, I guess that makes sense. And Jim Ryan, yeah, I would say that his sort of rise to power there definitely coincides with a lot of PlayStation's current path, which kind of people I run with have thought has been super boring and super bland and super safe. So there are some people being like, woohoo, let's go. Maybe we'll get some good games again.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It's a really big toss-up, because these kinds of things are, you're ultimately seeing two different CEOs leave their positions, and honestly, sometimes the CEO is the most, tangible of these positions. Or rather, if a CEO is stepping down, maybe there'll be some creative changes, maybe there'll be some more specific outlooks in the future, but at the same time, that kind of just requires a ecosystem where you can tell that there are other opportunities ahead. With Platinum, it is unfortunate that it just feels like there is more and more being stripped away from it. And so, I can only speculate at what the decision to leave was, and if anything, could have just been, hey, it's time for me to figure out something else. I'd been here for a while. Could also have been hey, there's probably other spots right now that actually do have the money to do stuff that I want to make. It's neither here nor there. Again, making an educated guess, I wouldn't be surprised if, what is it, the big talk seems to be that NetEase has been taking a lot of folks over.
Something
similarly
like that, yeah.
with CEO from RGG Studios. So
yeah,
it's definitely an option. It's definitely an idea there, but also, yeah, it kind of just depends on Sony opposite. I'm sure is not necessarily needing a person to helm PlayStation so much as someone that can still stick to whatever it is Sony in general is planning for its video game arm of everything that it does.
It's a messy time out there right now, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Don't give a shit about where Jim Ryan goes next, but yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eyes peeled to see what's going on with Kamiya, because I would just like for him to helm a new game. Like, I would love to see what's going on in his mind. What new concepts will he bring? I'm ready.
He's gonna let you experience the sensation of ripping your boxers.
He sure did immediately after posting that he was leaving Platinum, rip a huge hole in his pants. That is true. He did do that.
Like, it is just an open window, like, no balls shown, but, like, if you pantsed him, that would be full on, like, balls out.
Yeah, if you... He was basically going commando at that point. It was wild. But, you know, maybe that's the kind of stuff that we are, that we should expect to see from Kamiya in the future, you know? What's going on? Yeah, no, that's all the news we got. We could hit some questions, or is there anything else you want to touch on, Maverick, before we move on to that?
Nah, again, this has been like a slow week. And I also don't feel bad for like having a short one based on like the consecutive 5-star runtimes we've had in the past.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, I'm fucking tired. Yeah, here we go then. Some questions. If you want to send a question, go to gamesline.tumblr.com/ask. You'll sound like these folks right here. Anonymous asks, what crime would Mario commit that lands him in prison if he was suddenly real? So, I'm guessing this ask is like, what is something that Mario does that if he was in the real world, he would be punished for?
Well, I mean, arson?
Yeah, he does set a lot of things on fire. He does, like, harm a lot of animals. Like, I mean, you know, it's a funny robot chicken joke. But yeah, I mean, a lot of turtles these days are protected by, you know, like those are endangered species at times. So, definitely don't want him stepping on those. Breaking and entering, most likely. He seems like he would think that just like walking into somebody's house would be fine. Because he'd be like, this is the Toad House. Yeah.
No, exactly. If he was doing that Mario Odyssey level of just like parkour in New York, oh my god, there'd be a whole car. You just get a live feed of like all these cop cars jamming the fucking roads because they're trying to catch Mario.
See, but that one I can respect. Mario doing that shit. What I wouldn't respect is if he used his powers from Mario Odyssey to take control of other human beings and force them to do his bidding. I don't know if there's specifically a law against that, but it's not a good thing to do, I would say.
Coercion, you know, that could somehow become an insider trading situation.
Oh yeah, if especially if he is in New York and he shows up to the stock market, that would cause some sort of horror. Because he would just take over a bunch of people's heads and just sell a bunch of stock and buy a bunch of stock, and then that'd be it. Like I don't think Mario keeps track of that stuff. He wouldn't do it. He would drive the whole economy to shambles.
My economy.
Racing in public areas. I mean, those people. There was like a tourism thing in Japan where they had like Mario Karts, and that got shut down.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff you'd get in trouble with. We are so quick to judge those different than us. Maybe if we all jumped around and pulled a flagpole down and saved the princess, everything would be better.
I mean, honestly, if you were just like existing and like cohabitating here and Nintendo didn't know about it, it'd be really funny for him to get just like a C&D.
That would be pretty funny. So they'd be like, "Yeah, you're like, this is you're not real." He would be like one of those guys again, we're just thinking about New York right now, but I'm just thinking about one of those dudes at Times Square that, like, you'd take a picture with them and then they're like, hey, you owe me $30 now. But it would actually be Super Mario. I don't know. I don't think Mario would ask you for money if you did that, though, is the thing. Like, Mario would just be happy to take a picture with you because he loves you so much and he would just like to hang out with you for a little bit.
Who's to say? He needs a bit of coin.
Mm-hmm. Now, if it was Paper Mario, everything that we listed times like 10, because Paper Mario is a violent scoundrel. And I mean that with all the love in my heart. All right, then last question here from Cello Buster, who says, which game that you've played this year do you most think should have a re-release where they slap a bow on the main character's head and call them Ms.? I mean, Separate Ways DLC just came out. There you
go. This gets answered in ways that I cannot actually go into because it's kind of a spoiler.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But I wouldn't mind, like, because specifically, if we're not talking about, like, reimagining of a game where you play as, like, another part of the cast, specifically the pin a bow on it, and this is now Miss X. I'm trying to think. Miss Armored Core. Because there are some like women pilots in that game, but it's just like it. Again, you're a robot, and per the trailer, you yourself are kind of just like a bag of like meat that's hopping around somehow in this robot. But to think outside of that, like, I don't know, maybe because it'll be coming up soon, like Spider-Man, if we eventually had a Spider-Gwen game.
Yeah. I'm looking at this list of new games that I played this year, and you either play as a woman in it, or it's kind of imperative that you don't play as the woman in it, or there's some sort of side thing where you play as the woman in it. So I don't know. I mean, the only one on here is Pizza Tower, so I guess, whenever I mean, I think people have already made like female Peppino mods for that. So there you go, Ms. Pizza Tower, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's my answer, because all the rest of them, it's like Witch on the Holy Night, like, the main. I mean, you don't really play as anyone in that game. I was gonna say that, like, you're kind of from the point of view of the guy, but it's not really, because you kind of switch to Aoko a lot too. I don't know.
Shinchan, Boku no Natsuyasumi. How about Chibi Maruko-chan, Boku no Natsuyasumi?
Oh, hell yeah, actually? That would be good as hell. Yeah, they should do that.
It's an option.
That's an option. All right, well, I think that's it. I don't know what else. Again, short one this time because we didn't game as much, and the news was big, but it's the kind of thing where it's just like, what are we saying except fuck? This industry, man. What are we doing? Just, I hope things that are move better. I hope that people bounce back from Epic and Creative Assembly, and hopefully this voice actor strike goes well. If it does come to pass, yeah. Maverick, is there anything that you would like to speak on before we wrap up?
Nah, let's take it home.
All right. Of course, you can always find our website at the Gamesline, or it's just gamesline.net. Our Twitter is at the Gamesline. Not calling it the other name. Never, never, ever. Suck me from the back. Tumblr, gamesline.tumblr.com. Facebook.com/gamesline. YouTube.com/@ the @ symbol at the Gamesline. And Twitch.tv/gamesline TV. Those are all the places that you can experience our stuff. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamesline. $3 for all content. Well, not all content. some content a week early. The some stuff that you get a week early is Unlimited Real Works, the anime podcast, where I wasn't there last time, but Maverick and Rose and LV and me sometimes I'll go on to talk about anime. And then there's also the power, I almost said the fucking Power Bomb cast. Are they doing that again? I think they are. Oh my god, the Clothesline, the Clothesline, which is the wrestling podcast that Scott and Maverick and Lorelai and sometimes Franny do. That's just gonna stay on the Patreon. That one won't be free. You have to pay for that one.
Pay up.
Discord, thegamezone.zone. Type that into your web browser and bring you straight there. And come yell at us about wrestling if you want. And thank you, Melt Channel / Magic Circuit, for our theme song Crush off of the album Magic is Real. If you want to listen to our stuff, it's meltchannel.bandcamp.com. Magic-circuit.bandcamp.com. For now, at least. I sure hope it stays that way.
Yep, but also, if you're in the New York area, Magic Circuit will be playing on Thursday night for a set over at a local indie barcade, Wonderville.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll probably be there.
Yeah, if you run into them, tell them Gamesline sent you. I don't know if how they'll react to that, but hopefully they go, "Oh yeah, cool." That's what I would do.
Hey, remember that podcast you did a theme for? Yeah, I write for them now.
Yeah, so you do it. Maverick, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at table sorry, I'm looking at a Tabletop Simulator right now because I found out that what is it? A Twitch streamer that I follow, Socks, just put out a version of a little game they do called God Game, which, for people that have seen streams of this, has never been available before, because it very much is just like a Calvin ball of a board game. But that'll be good to see in the future. I'm actually kind of curious about that now. But no, people can find me on Twitter at Maverick Drifter. And that's about it.
And people can find me on Twitter at JOHN_MICHONSKI. And that will do it. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Gamesline podcast. So long.